You sit across from someone who is smiling. Their words are perfectly polite, but every instinct in your body is screaming that they are lying to you. You feel a sudden, inexplicable wave of unease. Why does your gut know something your logical brain entirely missed? For most of your life, you have been taught to listen to words. You listen to what people tell you about themselves. You trust the narrative they construct. But human beings are incredibly skilled at deception. Your brain, however, is a 2 million-year-old survival machine. It does not care about polite conversation. It cares about threat detection. And to survive, it learned to read the secret language hiding in plain sight on every human face. This language is known as micro-expressions. A micro-expression is an involuntary facial movement that occurs in a fraction of a second. Usually, it lasts for exactly 1/25th of a second. It happens so fast that the conscious mind cannot register it. But your subconscious mind catches it. What exactly is your subconscious seeing? To understand this, you must look at the groundbreaking work of psychologist Dr. Paul Ekman. In the 1960s, Ekman traveled to Papua New Guinea. He wanted to study an isolated tribe that had never seen television, movies, or outsiders. He wanted to know if human facial expressions were learned from culture or hardwired into biology. What he found changed psychology forever. He discovered that human beings possess 7 universal emotions. Regardless of your language, your culture, or your upbringing, your face betrays these 7 emotions in the exact same way. These emotions are anger, disgust, fear, sadness, happiness, surprise, and contempt. When someone tries to hide one of these feelings, their brain initiates a microscopic battle. The conscious brain tries to suppress the emotion. The subconscious brain tries to express it. The result is emotional leakage. For a fraction of a second, the true emotion flashes across the face. Think about the evolutionary origins of this mechanism. Charles Darwin first proposed this in his book, The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals. He argued that human facial expressions evolved for survival, not for communication. Your ancestors needed to react instantly to predators and poisons. Your facial muscles are hardwired directly into the most primitive parts of your brain. That is why they react before you can formulate a conscious thought. Imagine a scenario you have likely experienced. You are pitching an idea at work. Your coworker nods. They look at you and say that it is a brilliant concept. But for a split second, the left corner of their lip twitches upward into a half smile. Their head tilts back just a fraction of an inch. You feel a tiny spike of anxiety. What did you just witness? You just witnessed contempt. Contempt is the only asymmetrical emotion. It only appears on one side of the face. It is the physical manifestation of feeling superior to someone else. When you see that unilateral lip raise, your coworker is not agreeing with you. They are subconsciously dismissing you. They feel they are above you. Recognizing this single micro-expression can save you years of misplaced trust in toxic environments. Now consider happiness. People fake happiness every single day. You fake it when you receive a terrible gift. You fake it when you pass an acquaintance in the grocery store. But the brain knows the difference between a polite lie and genuine joy. In psychology, a true smile is called a Duchenne smile, named after the neurologist who first mapped facial muscles. When you fake a smile, you only use your zygomatic major muscle. This is the muscle that pulls the corners of your mouth upward. But a true Duchenne smile requires a second muscle. It requires the orbicularis oculi. This muscle wraps around your eyes. When it contracts, it creates crow's feet and makes the eyes sparkle. A fake smile stops at the mouth. A true smile reaches the eyes. Are the people in your life actually happy to see you, or are they just moving their mouths? Your brain also scans for threats using a concept called thin slicing. Psychologists Nalini Ambady and Robert Rosenthal coined this term. Thin slicing is the ability to find patterns in events based only on narrow windows of experience. Your brain takes a 2-second visual slice of a person's behavior. In those 2 seconds, it calculates their intent. It does this by analyzing micro-expressions of anger and disgust. Anger is designed to terrify. When a human feels genuine anger, their eyebrows pull down and together. Their eyes glare. Their lips narrow and tighten into a thin line. You might be in a relationship where your partner says they are not mad. They might speak in a completely calm voice. But if their lips press tightly together and their eyebrows drop, your thin slicing mechanism triggers an alarm. Their words say peace. Their face says war. Which one should you believe? Always believe the face. The facial nerve is connected directly to the amygdala, the emotional threat center of the brain. When a strong emotion hits, it takes immense cognitive effort to stop the facial muscles from firing. You cannot outsmart millions of years of evolution. Look at disgust. Disgust is perhaps the most dangerous emotion to see in a romantic relationship. Evolutionary psychologists believe disgust evolved to protect humans from poison and disease. When you smell rotten food, your nose wrinkles, your upper lip raises. This is a physiological attempt to block the bad smell and prepare to expel the poison. But over thousands of years, humans evolved to feel moral and social disgust. If you are arguing with your partner and they flash a wrinkled nose and a raised upper lip, they do not just disagree with you. They are repulsed by you. Renowned relationship researcher John Gottman found that the presence of disgust and contempt microexpressions is the #1 predictor of divorce. Are you ignoring the subtle signs of repulsion in your own home? What happens when people lie? A common myth is that liars cannot look you in the eye. But skilled manipulators know this. They will maintain aggressive eye contact to convince you of their honesty. What they cannot control is fear. Lying requires massive cognitive load. The brain is working overtime to construct the false narrative, remember the fake details, and monitor your reaction. This mental strain often triggers the fight or flight response. When this happens, a micro-expression of fear leaks out. Fear shows up in the eyebrows and eyes. The eyebrows pull up and together. The upper eyelids raise, exposing the white of the eye above the iris. The lips stretch horizontally back toward the ears. If someone is telling you a completely casual story about where they were last night, but their eyebrows pull up and their eyes widen for a split second, they are terrified. They are afraid of being caught. Your logical brain hears a mundane story. Your amygdala detects their hidden terror. This brings you to a counterintuitive truth about human behavior. The harder someone tries to hide an emotion, the more aggressively it will leak out. It is a psychological trap. You cannot consciously control all 43 muscles in your face simultaneously. It is biologically impossible. When you try to suppress a feeling, you increase the internal pressure. The emotion demands an outlet. It bypasses the conscious control center and fires the facial nerve anyway. This means the people working the hardest to deceive you are actually giving you the most information. But there is a dark side to this knowledge. Once you learn to see micro-expressions, you will be tempted to constantly search for deception. You will become a hyper-vigilant observer. This leads to a cognitive trap known as confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, and favor information that confirms your pre-existing beliefs. If you already suspect your friend is lying, you will fixate on every slight facial twitch. You will interpret a harmless itch on their nose as a sign of deceit. You will see ghosts where there are only shadows. Do you really want to live in a world where everyone is a suspect? To use this skill properly, you must learn to separate the trigger from the emotion. A micro-expression tells you what someone is feeling. It does not tell you why they are feeling it. This is a critical distinction known as Othello's error. The term comes from Shakespeare's play. Othello accuses his wife Desdemona of infidelity. She shows intense fear. Othello assumes she is afraid because she is guilty, but she was actually afraid because she knew her jealous, irrational husband was going to kill her. She was innocent, but her fear was entirely real. When you see a micro-expression of fear in someone, do not instantly assume guilt. They might just be terrified of not being believed. When you see anger, they might not be angry at you. They might be angry at a sudden memory your words triggered. You must use a micro-expression to guide your questions, not to render a final verdict. It is a compass, not a map. Reading micro-expressions is not just a tool for interrogation. It is a masterclass in radical empathy. It is about seeing the silent, invisible suffering in the people you love. Think about sadness. Sadness is the hardest micro-expression to fake. It is also the hardest one to hide. When a human being feels profound sadness, the inner corners of their eyebrows pull up and together. The corners of their lips pull down. The jaw pushes up, causing the lower lip to pout. You might ask your friend how they are doing after a painful breakup. They might force a huge, enthusiastic smile. They will say they have never been better, but if the inner corners of their eyebrows are pulled up into an inverted V shape, they are drowning in grief. Their words are desperately trying to protect you. Their face is silently begging for help. Will you listen to their bravado, or will you listen to their pain? You now possess a psychological superpower. You are no longer blind to the hidden currents of human interaction. You can see the contempt behind the corporate compliment. You can see the fear behind the confident lie. You can see the deep sadness behind the cheerful greeting. The world will suddenly look very different to you. Tomorrow, you will walk out into the world. You will go to work. You will sit at a coffee shop. You will talk to your family. You must try an experiment. For just one day, mute their words in your mind. Watch the corners of their mouths. Watch the skin around their eyes. Watch how their eyebrows dance and fall. You will realize that everyone around you is constantly broadcasting their deepest secrets. You sit across from someone who is smiling, but this time, you know exactly what they are hiding.